Peace, everybody, and welcome to a new week. This is the Seven of Spades week because this is the 47th week of the year, and the solar value of the Seven of Spades is 47. So collectively, we are all under this Seven of Spades energy. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down or looking at all the cards that are in the Seven of Spades hand, life spread, however you want to call it, and where it sits on this plate and how we can really utilize this energy to its highest. So sevens, especially the Seven of Spades, this is the ultimate card of faith. But what do we also know about faith? There's also that side of fear. So that's why they call this card the card of faith or fear. And remember, there's not room for both. So we have to really invoke that faith when we're dealing with this energy. We have to really alchemize any of these fears or triggers that can come up, because it sometimes is testing our faith, right? Now, when we look at where it sits on the plate, right, I zoomed in so that we could see it a little bit better. And then I will, adjust as we move through, because it does move up. It's spread through the crown line. But where it sits here this is Uranus. So the Seven of Spades is here, and this is the Uranus row, and then this is Jupiter. So the energy that the Seven of Spades sits in naturally is Uranus, Jupiter. Well, what do we know about those two planets? Well, we know Uranus rules the 11th house, that Aquarian energy, so sometimes kind of outside the box. There could be sudden disruptions, sudden accidents, sudden things that could happen out of the blue unexpectedly that really kind of maybe shake up or test that faith. And then there's Jupiter, and that kind of is like that blessing, that expansion, that increase, that really a leap of faith is so Jupiterian energy, right? So when we look at Uranus and Jupiter, yes, some things can happen suddenly, out of the blue, unexpectedly, to really test or trigger that faith that we must have, that higher belief that this is all happening for us, not against us, that it's working for our favor. And we have to have faith even when we don't know exactly what may be playing out, right? It's just always keeping that higher energy, because with sevens, there's really no in between. It's either one or the other. And remember, there's not room for both. So you're either going to operate from that faith, or you would operate from that fear. And it's not like, oh no, it's bad. It's just being aware of the energy when like something may happen suddenly out of the blue or triggers you. Are you going to see the bright side, or will you go to the pessimistic side, like everything is against you? Or can you see the silver lining in those sudden disruptions that Uranus can bring, and really have faith that maybe even the disruptions are what you needed to kind of test that faith and show you that even keeping that faith through those disruptions and through those triggers is key for this energy. So it's a very interesting card. Let's get into their spread. So again, it does sit Uranus, Jupiter, and their cards that it, sits in here. This is the supporting karma card, the Eight of Hearts, and this is the challenging karma card, the King of Diamonds. And with the Eight of Hearts, there's a lot of emotional power. Can be very strong-willed, very consistent, very determined, very driven. That's 8, right? Infinite source of energy, an infinite source of love, emotional power. And again, it's very consistent, can be very dominating, can be very abrupt even. That's just 8 energy naturally. So they're coming from that space and they're moving to the King of Diamonds, which is very boss. Eights and kings are similar energies, lots of power, lots of determination, leadership, putting forth a lot of effort, but there's discipline, right? That I think is the biggest thing with those eights and kings. Their discipline is how they get to the success that they have, that they want, is by staying consistent, by being disciplined, by being ambitious, and not giving up, right? That's one thing with two. I always say eights are like Energizer bunnies. They just keep going and going and going. And then that's where the King of Diamonds kind of comes in, because you can have a lot of success by not giving up, by, keep going, that consistency. So those two cards are very telling to the energy of the Seven of Spades. And for them to have success, that discipline is key. But remember, they're a card that swings. So they have to really invoke that self-discipline, that self-mastery to get those rewards that that king and that 8 can bring. Now, the card that pushes them is the Nine of Diamonds. Some people call it a moon card, a supporting card, but it is the card behind them, and it is that moon supporting energy. So they are really supported in like the surrendering, the allowing, the letting go, the releasing, right? The not holding on to things. If something is ending, know, again, have faith that even the ending is a blessing, that something even better is going to come. And then the card, their very first card, their Mercury card, is a Two of Clubs. You don't get more mercurial sometimes than that too. That conversation, that connections, those sharing ideas, they can definitely talk a lot with that Two of Clubs as their Mercury card, because Mercury is how we communicate, how we think. Now, this also is very telling that a lot of times, again, twos and sevens can really show a lot of fear. And this is where they really have to be mindful, Two of Clubs, or are they trying to, especially when they're in like heated discussions, or they're trying to share some wisdom or information, like am I listening? Am I only listening to respond? Is this conversation fear-based, fear-rooted, or is this just like expressing myself, sharing ideas? And so there definitely can be a lot of connections, a lot of conversations this week, especially with the Two of Clubs. You may be on the phone a lot, lots of emails, lots of, reaching out. Just, you got to sometimes check yourself. Am I reaching out out of fear? Am I reaching out out of codependency? Or am I reaching out because I want to communicate? I want to express. I love the, that back and forth banter that Two of Clubs thrives in, those conversations that really can be very spiritually rooted too, since the Seven of Spades is a part of this, equation here. But again, we have to make sure we're not trying to control. We're not like attached to outcomes of the conversations, because that's where we can get disappointed. And that's where a lot of that fear energy can come into. But really good for communicating. And obviously, since that King of Hearts is a part of that, communicating with love, right? Not control, not like that, not listening, like really being open and really leading with that big heart energy. Now, their Venus card is a King of Clubs. And having a King in Venus, there's a lot of power and a lot of authority through relationships, right? And this is a very knowledgeable card, but we can't forget it sits Uranus. So they may have some very unusual connections, but this also shows that they can really resolve a lot of relationship problems by just being able to communicate, being able to express, and really being able to use the power of the mind that King of Clubs has to discern, is this real? Is this fake? Is this BS? Is this, you know what I mean? Like that King of Clubs mental power is so strong that they can really discern through the smoke and mirrors that sometimes that can come from like the Seven of Spades energy. So again, expressing yourself in relationships, sharing ideas, but watch. So sometimes that King of Clubs can be a little condescending and think that they, that they can't be open to other people's information, ideas, words and communication. So be flexible, be open. Watch that boss type of energy too. Sometimes that King of Clubs can come off very stern, very aggressive in how they communicate. But remember, like this, they probably love intelligence. Like you got to have something going on. If not, they can really kind of, overpower and really use that authority to kind of even gain things through relationships for their own benefit, right? Now, their Mars card is the Jack of Diamonds. So they do have this like very convincing and, salesmanship energy, because that is the Jack of Diamonds is the salesman card. So really being that persuasiveness, the Jack of Diamonds is probably one of the only non-heart cards that I give like my Rico Suave title to, because they do have that charm, that magnetism, that they're selling. So what are they selling you? And this makes them really creative in business when they're really operating from the high side of that card. But they do have to be careful of like cutting corners, doing things half-assed, not really being responsible. That's the low side of that Jack, and not really like following through, but really good at business, innovation, thinking outside the box. They do have to be careful of sometimes of the delusion energy, because it does sit here in this Neptune row. It is still Uranus, so there can be like sudden opportunities to expand, to increase. And remember, the Jacks are constantly going, it's an initiation. So it's really asking the Seven of Spades to initiate to that higher side of its energy, because you'll find a lot of times those sevens and Jacks travel together because they're trying to bring you to like that royalty of the Queen and the King, leaving the mundane to the spiritual and leaving what I like to call the peasant to the royal energy. But again, because it's a seven and then we have this Jack and Mars, they can kind of teeter from both sides. But with that Jack of Diamonds, very innovative, very creative, especially when it comes to business and resources and selling and convincing. Now, their Jupiter card is the Four of Hearts. So there is this like emphasis on like emotional security, family. I think the Four of Hearts and Jupiter is a wonderful placement because it really, opens up that heart energy expansion on the home, the family relationships can be very like satisfying for them. But it's interesting that they have a 4 in Jupiter and a 4 in Saturn. And what I've learned with sevens is like their most magical is when they're present, when they're in the moment, when they're clear, they're not teetering, they're not swinging from that faith to that fear. They're just in the moment. They're present and they can really experience a lot of love and a lot of that foundational security and that feeling safe and secure when they root into that heart energy that Four of Hearts has, when they root into like that feeling safe and feeling at home within themselves, right? It's so important. So this week for all of us, since we're all under this energy, like anytime you start to see your energy like shift to that too much to one side, like bring yourself down to the now. Find everything to be grateful for. Like that's such like the magic of this energy, and being present is why the sevens can like really manifest when they're not in that lack or scarcity, worry, or attached to certain outcomes or things being a certain way. They're just moment by moment because that's really all we have, right? And again, home, family feels good, feels safe. They really like that security, but they have to have that security within themselves first. And then, like I said, their Saturn card is the 4 of Diamonds. So getting clear about what's important to them. Financially, they can do very well when they have those plans, when they follow, when they're disciplined. That's a big thing with that 4. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Not like jumping around, but really focusing. What are you building? What is important to you? What's valuable to you is such a big thing that helps the sevens to really have that discipline, have that grounding energy that, keeps them rooted and not just, flippity floppity back and forth. But great with business, building something solid. Remember, Saturn is the long haul, longevity. They're building something for a lifetime, right? Not just a quick reward. This is something when they stay consistent, when they're disciplined, the success that they can have can be immense. Now, their Uranus card is the 2 of Spades. So again, they have a Mercury 2 and a Uranus 2. So one, friendships and partnerships can kind of come in suddenly and or end abruptly. They may be open to people from all different walks of life or just have very interesting connections. And they may enjoy spending time with people. These are like that brotherly love, working partnerships, friendships, connections. And again, not coming from any fear, any codependency, any control. Just, they probably love to talk. They love to communicate, and they can kind of be some very interesting conversations, especially with that Mercury and that Uranus, thinking outside the box. And again, even having very interesting relationships that could suddenly happen and then suddenly end. And again, having no attachments to it, just allowing and flowing is so big. But again, that friendship energy with that 2 of Spades and really connecting, even from remember, this is Uranus, so that 11th house, friendships, and how they really probably enjoy connections. But they also, I think, have a lot of that energy of needing time to kind of go within, not looking to other people to, have that sense of safety and security. They have to have that within themselves first, and then that reflects through their relationships. Now, their Neptune card is the 8 of Hearts. And remember, that's their supporting karma card. So again, this does give them that charm, that persuasiveness, that emotional power. And with it being in Neptune, they can have a lot of social success. They can have, a lot of love and get it even from I feel like with this 8 of Hearts and Neptune, they can heal a lot of subconscious wounds when they stay consistent and when they stay disciplined within themselves. Because even what's interesting about that 8 of Hearts is they have these 2 sevens connected to it. So it's really fascinating when you really start looking at where they sit and what's connected to them. But with those 8s and 7s, because they go in order, right? Sevens being faith or fear. I always say they're going to be either a consistent energy of faith or a consistent energy of fear. You choose. And so they really, when they really rein it in and they really see that they have a lot of that power and that discipline, they can have a lot of success. And this can bring a lot of love, a lot of healing, a lot of strength in those emotions. Now, their Pluto card is the Six of Clubs. And it's interesting because another seven has a six in Pluto. I think it's the Seven of Diamonds. And sevens and sixes are really just a reflection from the inside out. And this is, again, you're going to hear me talk about it a lot, like the discipline, the responsibility, the honesty. This is the messenger card, and they have it in Pluto. So they have to trust their intuition. They have to trust those messages. They have to be honest. They have to keep their word. They have to be consistent. They have to be disciplined, because on the low side, this can have you stuck. This can have you feeling like, oh my God, like it can be like really, you have to put forth that effort. But when you do, it gets rewarded. But since it's a club, it's like their words, the things that they think, the things that they say, those downloads, and really being able to trust those messages that are coming from spirit, because it's seven, it's that spiritual energy. So they probably get these downloads, and what do I do with it, right? And that's where they have to like really go within, take an honest look at themselves, be honest about things, not really come from that space of lack and fear, because it's just going to come back, right? What six is, it starts at the top and goes back down and into itself. So it's the sevens have to really learn, like they're just getting back the energy that they're putting out. And if you like what's showing up, keep doing more of what you've been doing. But if you don't like what's showing up, you got to adjust. You got to, maybe do it at a different way, make some changes, which can be sometimes a little uncomfortable for those sixes. So since they have this as Pluto, they have to be very responsible. They have to be very disciplined. They have to take an honest look at themselves, because the outside world is just a reflection. So this week for all of us, if we don't like what's showing up, like we can't look outside in, we have to look inside out, because the outside is just a reflection, and we do have the power to change it. And again, consistency will pay off. Being disciplined will very much pay off with this energy. And then the result card is also a six, the Six of Spades. So very fated. Very when they really put forth that effort and they really do heed the responsibility of those sixes, their reward is also fated, destined energy, alignment, timing. And that's another thing, like having faith that everything is working out as it should in divine timing, not our timing, but spirit's timing, the universe's timing, God's timing, whatever you want to call it. It shows like, having a six is a reward card. It's like everything is lining up as it should. It's putting you more on the purpose of your path. So trusting that, having faith. So even in this week where we can be tested, where we can be triggered, you've got to have faith that even the tests and the triggers are meant to show you where there may be lack of discipline, some fears, some scarcity, whatever it may be. And how do you rectify it? How do you fix it? How do you adjust? How do you, make those adjustments within yourself so that you really do trust in the timing of everything, and you have faith. Now, their cosmic lesson is the Queen of Hearts. So, with this energy, that love, that nurturing, we know the Queen of Hearts is the mother of love. And so really coming from more of the love, that being of service. But they have to be careful though, because it sits Neptune, and it's their cosmic lesson. They have to be careful of like that overindulging, getting addicted, taking things overboard, maybe with, certain things like, gambling, food, sex, shopping, whatever it may be. There can be some addictions with this energy, and it may be very hard for them. They have to learn how to trust those senses that Queen of Hearts has, what she feels, what she sees, what she smells, all those senses that get lit up with her. Like they have to listen to it. They have to trust her. It's a lesson for them, right? So, in this week, as we move through this week, how are you nurturing yourself and loving yourself and being of serving your deepest heart's desires, right? That's a big part of that Queen of Hearts. Now we got to go all the way up to the crown line, because this is where their spread completes. Their cosmic moon is the Ten of Clubs. So they may deal with a lot of like I find that the Seven of Spades can, how they maybe share is through those communications, and sometimes they can overthink it, right? Because the 10 of clubs is such a mental energy of expansion of the mind, increase of thoughts and ideas. And sometimes it can be overwhelming for them and how they show up emotionally, right? And sometimes with tens, we know they like to kind of come in, they love attention, they love to take over. So they have to be mindful in that space. But really, when we look at like that 10, it's one with your higher self. So really having that emotional discipline as well within themselves to not like overthink it and to really like kind of like rein that energy in, because I think having a 10 in the moon makes it where it can, you want a lot of that attention, and if you don't get it, it can get where you're disappointed or you feel like abandonment energy. So again, because it's that one with your higher self, like you have to give that attention to yourself. You have to see your value and your worth. And especially with the 10 of clubs being a very strong mental and communicative card, finding healthy ways to express their emotions, usually journaling, writing. And they also have that ability to be seen, to be recognized. You know, when we rise up to that crown line, there is like be like again like it can be fame, it can be again a lot of attention, but being mindful of what they're doing it for. Right now they do transform into the 8 of diamonds. 3 of the 7s actually transform into 8s, and that's kind of why I always say like they're either going to be an infinite source of faith or an infinite source of fear. You choose, because an 8, there's no break, it's constant, it's consistent. So what side of the fence though will you sit on with that 7 energy? And because the 8 of diamonds sits in the sun, again, they do, when they're consistent and they really put forth that effort, they can really have a lot of success. They can bring forth a lot of opportunity to shine, to be recognized, to be financially secure. But again, that discipline, going back to their Pluto and their reward card, it is your consistency. It's the will. It's not giving up. Even when, again, triggers happen. You know, we can be tested in this energy. Are you still, how, like getting clear with that 4 of diamonds? This is what I want. Yes, I may experience some bumps in the roads, but am I just going to give up at one little hiccup? Or am I going to keep going? Am I going to be consistent? Am I going to be driven? Am I going to put that persistency to use and really follow through? Because I think sometimes what they can get stuck with those 6s and just abandon ship. But if they would have just kept going, it really, again, with these 2 cards being their last 2 cards, they could really have a lot of success. It's just not letting those sometimes sudden triggers that can happen derail them, and then they spiral into like the negative, the pessimistic, the worst case scenario, when really all they had to do was like keep going, and they could have saw it through, and it really could brought a lot of expansion, opportunities, success, resources, etc. So in this 7 of Spades week, please be mindful. Not everybody knows that it's the card of accidents. So I know we're Wednesday, and even just traveling throughout this week, I've seen a lot of like, you know, the other night coming home, the highway was shut down, big accident. You've seen ambulance going by, and it'll be definitely more in this week than normal. And on top of it, we have Mercury and Mars coming together, which also can show for accidents. And it's not just vehicles. Watch with your, cooking or doing anything with sharp objects, because you got that Uranian energy and that Jupiter energy, which can be very disruptive and intense and expansive. So take it at a slower pace, pay attention, don't be distracted, ground yourself too. If you get triggered, if something like comes up, bring yourself down to the now. Stay present. Remember, we cannot go 5 minutes from now, 5 hours from now, 5 days from now, 5 months from now. We can't go back 5 minutes ago, 5 hours ago, 5 days ago, 5 weeks ago. We only have the now. And that is when the 7s are at their most magical. When they're not swinging, when they're not tipping, when they're just in the moment and they see the magic of the moment, when they're grateful and they're appreciative for the moment. Because again, you can't go ahead, you can't go back. And when you really operate from that space, this is why there's such strong cards of manifestation. Because to manifest, you're not in lack, you're in the moment, and you're not attached to the outcome. You have faith that everything that is supposed to be for you will come for you. It will be yours. The doors will open, right? And again, It's just staying present and really sometimes being mindful, like, oh, I'm spiraling. Why am I thinking worst case scenario when nothing has even happened? So and again, that Two of Clubs is Mercury. It gets their mind going, and that King of Clubs and Venus, that stimulation of the mind can be a blessing or a battlefield, so really just being aware that sometimes something happens. Like, this is pure alchemy. Oh my goodness. This is pure being able to alchemize the energy, and not getting, like, again, not letting this is literally taking the negative and turning it into positive. But this requires you to go within and do that work, and recognizing when you might be spiraling or slipping, and really pull yourself out of what I call like the quicksand of that 7, because it can really drag you down. But the work is to pull yourself back up, right? And a lot of that is just bringing yourself to the now. So anyways, happy 7 of Spades week. I hope it's a beautiful, faithful, and successful week for everybody. And I will see you next time for the 8 of Spades week. Peace.